What is up? You know when the Raps fan base is crying officiating conspiracy that the Raps are back. So let's start with the most pressing question, and I'm kind of shocked we're asking this. Is this Raptors team, since the trade, is this a playoff team?
Ooh, as of this taping, they're 15 and 23?
Yeah. They're not.
They're
not. As of now.
As of now, they are not. They've been playing a lot better. The offense is what is absolutely it's mesmerizing me, man. This is a team that's actually playing modern basketball now. They have guards, they got quick guards, harkening back to the days of Jose Calderon, TJ Ford, Kyle Lowry, just multiple guards on the floor at the same time, a lot of speed, a lot of shooting. I don't know if they're a playoff team, but I am now happy when I watch games because I'm excited because I think it's interesting.
That's the big thing that was missing, is that I didn't realize how unwatchable this team was until we saw them play modern basketball.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're obviously going to get into Quickley and RJ and all that, but playing with a competent guard who can score, it's just really changed what this team is.
Who knew?
Yeah, I think if you're looking at their playoff outlook, what you have to ask yourself is, can they win 2 play-in games against teams so you're going to be figured against Orlando,
Bulls.
Atlanta, the Bulls, the Nets, maybe the Cavs. Can they win 2 of those games? I don't know. It's a hard thing to say.
Let's get there first.
Our friends at FanDuel are saying they're likely not a playoff team. They're plus 310 to make the playoffs. So,
but they've adjusted that win total, though.
Yeah. It's 36 and a half, right? We're exactly where we started at the beginning of the year. They're projected to win 36 and a half wins. So the road to 37 still intact.
Still intact. Yeah, okay, so win total's one thing, playoff bound is another. I think the one thing that's interesting, if you really want to break that down, look at some of these play-in teams. Some of these guys are really faltering quickly. Brooklyn, falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with Chicago come deadline? I think it's pretty clear Levine's going to go. Even Atlanta, underachieving like crazy. There's a lot of DeJounte Murray news in there. So are they playoff-bound team? The odds say no, but I think the talent we're seeing right now should have any Raps fan encouraged that they're capable of really giving another team in the play-in tournament a fight.
I think what you just said there, encourage, and we've seen this over this recent road trip. They're playing good teams, and even the Clippers game on Wednesday night.
They're in all the games.
That's the thing. They're
in all the
competitive,
games.
And even when it's an 8 or a 9 point game with a minute and a half, they're crawling back and making these things interesting in the last minute or so.
Sacramento can't miss a shot from 3.
55%.
And yet the Raptors find a way to claw themselves back. They're just doing stuff that we notice, right? So we cover the Raptors pretty much day in, day out. They're diving for loose balls. There's,
there's
body,
an energy.
Body
There's
language
energy.
doctors.
Eye test-wise, they're playing with a sense of joy that didn't exist before.
A lot more scrambling, a lot more up-tempo. Against the Clippers, they were running off makes, running off misses. They just have more engines. So I harked on the old 2-guard lineup from our girl Keeks. The Raptors have an 8+18 net rating with Dennis Schroeder and Immanuel Quickley on the floor together. And that, to me, says a lot because you know what's hard to guard? Speed.
Yeah,
shooting.
of course. Mm-hmm.
And now those 2 things that the Raptors never had, and now they have an abundance of it with RJ Barrett, who we'll get into, just a crafty guy who can score. They got guys who can score. Precious Achiuwa could not score. OG needed to be fed to score. Malachi Flynn, I'll not say anything.
Look, what's different with this new
Respect.
roster construction? They can run a lineup out there where all 5 guys on the floor at one time can dribble and make their own play.
That didn't exist. A novel concept in 2023 basketball.
But that actually didn't exist.
Modern
Literally
basketball.
2 weeks ago, it did not exist.
Yeah,
right?
I think qualitatively, just watching them makes the fans feel alive again, which, you don't want an indifferent fan base, which I think the last year and a half has been relatively indifferent from.
It's been sad.
It's been sad to watch, and I
Morose.
think now you're at
Morose.
least looking forward to their games, right?
Yeah.
I think you're I'm excited to watch these guys play because they have one of the best offenses in the league since that trade. They're playing hard, they're in every game, so it's fun to watch them again.
And I think to me too, the Darko rant, right?
First of all, legendary rant from Darko.
Pantheon.
Run the clip.
What happened tonight, this is completely BS. This is shame. Shame for the referees, shame for the league to allow this. 23 free throws for them, and we get 2 free throws in the 4th quarter. How to play the game. I understand respect for all stars and all that, but we have star players on our team as well. They had to win tonight. If that's the case, just let us know so we don't show up for the game. Just give them a win. But that was not fair tonight. And this is not happening first time for us. Scotty Barnes is going to be all-star. He's going to be the face of this league. And what's happening over here during whole season, I've been holding it back. It's a complete crap.
That rant right there, to me, I think, in my opinion, helped galvanize the fan base. What it does for that locker room, again, from the outside looking in, we're not in there, it can only mean good things. Obviously, putting Scotty on a pedestal like that, I think is really, really interesting, but also just kind of shows where the team and where Darko sees him and also where his teammates see Scotty. So if there's this buzz, there's this good positive vibes within the locker room, I think that only does well for Raptors' futures this year. So win totals, like, I'm thinking of jumping back on that thing. Am I crazy? Am I crazy to jump back on 36
No,
and a
the
half?
analogy I was gonna have, like in that animation, it's like the car was breaking down, and then they picked up these two hitchhikers, and one dude had like a ball of nos with him.
Yeah.
All right, let's hook this thing up. Let's give this thing some speed, right? If you look at from a betting standpoint, one thing that's jumped out. You and I talked about this literally on the broadcast just the other day. 5-1 against the spread, 5-1 to the game totals. They've beat the team total set by odds makers every single game since this trade happened. So defensively, sure, fine. There's a lot of room for improvement, but offensively,
But you only
they're
need
crushing.
timely stops nowadays in this NBA, right? Like playoffs are a different animal where you could scheme.
Yes.
But you just need timely stops now. You don't need to be this like slow it down.
It doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
the,
That
the-
defense
the-
doesn't
the
exist.
days of building your team around we're gonna clamp everyone down over 82 games doesn't exist
It's
anymore.
stylistic,
You have
right?
to score.
It
You have to
depends
score
on your
points.
opponent. It depends on what you do in the playoffs. In my opinion, that's
and betting on them and creating parlays for them has now become a lot easier, and they're actually doing well. You know why? Because you have functional players again. We don't have three small forwards, and you're like, who's gonna score tonight? Who's gonna do something
Yes.
tonight? So
Yes.
you know, and RJ
Roulette.
Barrett has been a bit of a cash cow too on his opens,
Yes, he
right?
has.
Now, here's a question, though. The RJ numbers are clearly not sustainable. I think we're shooting, 54% from three.
Fair.
The scoring is there. When that RJ drop-off happens, the shooting isn't going to be this hot. What does that mean for this team? I don't think it's going to affect them too much because, yeah, he's just in a hot little stretch, but I think he can still be a 20-point-per-game player, and if he can be a 40% three-point shooter, then I think the Raps are clear winners of that trade. Yeah, we know the Knicks are playing great with OG, but can he be a 40% three-point shooter?
Okay, so no disrespect to RJ, but I want to just point out for the fans, 40% is a really high threshold.
Yeah, that's an excellent. You're
You're
an elite
literally
three-point
at
shooter.
the very,
if
very
you're
top of the
40%.
league. So I don't think RJ is going to get to that level. But one thing that you're going to see, if you really ever paid attention to film, Knicks versus the Raptors, RJ doesn't have to initiate and create as much ISO offense as much with the Raptors. A lot of these threes that he's banging right now, they're from the corners. And he's wide open. And he's got to be able to hit those. And so if he can play that role for the Raptors, great. I think the challenge is going to be when RJ has to really start doing and initiating a lot of it on his own. You're going to see some of that inefficiency pop back up. But for the time being...
But with the current build, does he need to?
Yeah, does he need to do that?
That's what I'm saying. So I'm encouraged that the role that he's playing right now, he can be sustainably good in
And
the
then
shooting
can
percentage.
he keep that role going all year when you have Quickley and Schroeder who can create?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then when you're running up and down the floor and there's just more touches, more offense just in general, everyone's going to get theirs. And I think it's a very interesting dynamic with RJ because, this was seen as the Immanuel Quickley trade, right? I think a lot of us even prognosticated
Well,
that.
I think for the general fan base, Barrett was the name because he's Canadian.
that's
That's,
Canadian,
and that's
yes.
what people knew.
For the
bigger
Puck
contract- the bigger contract.
bros who watch their 20 Raptor games a year, yeah, it was the RJ trade. For the ball people, it was the Quickley trade.
Yeah, everyone knew Quickley
Very well
was the
put.
headliner of the deal. For that he's the guy who's ultimately going to bring you up.
Yeah, he
right?
represented the perfect fit with Scotty to come up with two guys growing together who can create a dynamic duo, right? And RJ was kind of this guy who's under contract for 3-4 more years.
I think it's a great buy low, though. And in 3 years, we could
He's
look
20
at
yeah,
it as
Because
the
you look
RJ
at how the
trade.
cap, you look at how the cap's
But also, the
23.
pedigree, the guy was a third overall pick, and heading into his year, he was talked about as the first overall pick in the draft. So,
Listen, he's okay. Now, obviously, they gave up OG Anunoby, who I think fits the Knicks better for what they're trying to do. They're closer to winning a champ. They're not a championship contender, but they're closer.
Yes.
And I think he fits better as that 3-and-D type of player. Whereas the Raptors needed guys who can score.
Yeah.
And RJ, hey man, he gets to that left, he gets to the rim, he's great at attacking space, and if the shot's falling, he's a dynamic offensive player. They didn't have that with Anunoby. So you've now added two pretty good offensive players at the exchange of one. So your rotation has just gotten better by adding one more quality player
By
to
also filling massive needs.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. You added 2 players where you were at a huge deficiency and you needed that offensive creativity. Sorry.
Hold
go
on.
ahead.
We've gone this long without our host moving the conversation to Pascal.
Because this
Siakam.
is just such. I've been waiting for my moment. I was going to.
We're getting flash times from Riz here.
Hold on.
Pascal Siakam is the elephant in the room.
I want to apologize for you all making such great points that it was not time to transition to Siakam yet. Wes brought it up before with the futures, and our friends at FanDuel have a lovely little future market with Pascal Siakam. I believe last check he was plus 165 to remain with the Raptors.
plus
And
145.
now it's dropping.
I think it's plus
It's dropping.
145.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
plus 145. If this team keeps winning, we know Masai, he loves his guys. If this team is continuing to win, I don't see them trading Siakam.
So Josh Lewenberg, TSN Zone, wrote a very interesting article the other day about the Raptors having to make a decision very, very soon on Pascal Siakam. In my opinion, you cannot not make a decision on Pascal past the trade deadline. You either have to extend him before February 8th or you trade him.
100% agree.
And
It's a hard, for me, it's a hard deadline. And even if you're getting, 50 cents on the dollar, if you can't come to an extension, you cannot let him hit free agency. We saw what happened with
50
Fred-
cents?
Well, or let him test free agency. Is that your option? We just saw Fred VanVleet walk.
But also, doesn't this kind of remind you of going into 2010 with Bosch when that team started to win and it's like, oh, you can't trade Bosch now.
Yeah.
It's very similar, and I think you need. What about a verbal commitment? If Pascal doesn't sign, but he says, look, I'm going to sign. Is that too flimsy?
So they are able to sign him now to a 4-year, over $200 million.
Yeah, but I don't think you want to max him.
I don't think
Isn't that
he's
what he
worth
wants, though?
It's what he wants. Of course he's going to want it.
I don't think you can max him.
I don't think he's worth
that.
it. I mean, Kawhi Leonard just signed 3 years,
Yeah,
153.
Kawhi took less than the max.
And
so
listen, Kawhi's older, obviously, but
Yeah, but Pascal ain't Kawhi Leonard, man. So sorry, man, and we're not going to pay you the same
Pascal's
amount.
a great player, but he is not Kawhi Leonard. It's just
Game 1 of the 2019 finals says otherwise.
Yeah,
Pascal was fine.
how about the other 20?
Dude, he scored the last field goal of Game 6 of that finals. Like he has merit. He's a real good story in Toronto. But listen, man, we're mid-late January right now. We're entering a very, very important time. He gets all the leverage if you go past the deadline and he's still on the Raptors. Yep.
Yes, and ultimately you have to still listen. This team is still a work in progress. So you're going to sign him to this 4-year deal. You have a younger kind of group. If you keep Siakam, you're not competing for a championship. You're still a fringe playoff team. So are you going to do yourself a disservice in the bigger picture?
I would extend Pascal Siakam over getting 50 cents on the dollar for him.
Oh no, I'm not saying not to sign him. I would extend him as well. I'm not against the idea of
Would you give him
extending.
the max?
I'm saying if he refuses an extension by the deadline,
you have to
I'm
trade
trading
him.
him.
Would you give him the max?
I would not give him the max. I'd be more comfortable with something 40-ish.
Yeah, like
something
4,160,
I'm sorry,
4,170.
no
That'd be ideal.
disrespect to Pascal, great player, but 50 for him at this point in his career, I think is a little too much.
With Scotty Barnes' extension coming up,
Yes,
and you got
exact-
Daniel Quickley's new contract.
Exactly. So my thing is just it's a hard deadline. It's either a trade or an extension by the
There
deadline.
are still some redundancies too with Scotty and Siakam, which we kind of ignored because over the last 6 games, it hasn't really looked like it. I know Siakam missed a game, but
So we were talking about whether the Raptors make the playoffs or not. Can they make the play-in? Can they, overcome their win total of 36.5? Do they have a better chance of doing that with Pascal on the roster than a similar trade as to the OG Anunoby trade, where you're getting 2 guys for him, potentially younger players?
well, I think
That's the question,
That's a big
right? That's the
hypothetical because
question.
it's like, what are you getting back, right? Are you getting
Yeah.
young project players who are not going to see any time, or are you going to get an
Warm
immediate
bodies.
Yeah, are you getting an immediate warm body that fills a gap for what the needs are for the team? So, hard to answer that, right?
But within the market, I lean right now, if it were up to me, I would lean towards him staying.
Well, so does FanDuel.
yeah.
And I think there's
right now
value.
they think it's
And that's why before we post this episode, we are probably all going to bet that before the market changes.
Value.
But I think it's really hard to trade him if you keep seeing progress on offense.
True.
Oh, for
and,
sure.
and especially when the Siakam market, I think even going back to last year when he was like, oh, I'm not going to re-sign with whoever trades for me, the market doesn't seem to be
Not
there.
good
So
for the
what
Raptors.
are you getting?
Yeah.
I've brought this up on a previous pod.
Harrison Barnes.
Just
Oh,
because-
that was such a joke.
Exactly, right? So, just because we feel the pressure or the Raps feel the pressure to trade him now, If you sign him now, his value could improve later. He can still be traded after you sign him to the extension.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean once he's on this extension, he's stuck with the Raptors for the next 4 years. No.
But my thing is, if you overpay him, I think he becomes harder to deal.
So there you go.
So
Like you said,
if
you
you're
have to
stuck
price
with
it right.
Pascal at 50 mil, I don't think that's a very easily movable contract because it's not like people are knocking down the door for him right now anyway.
But I think that's because of the uncertainty of the unrestricted free agency, where like I think we've seen anybody can be traded.
Yeah.
Like anybody can be moved, and by re-signing him, you maybe we know Masai loves his flexibility. You do probably maintain a lot of that flexibility by re-signing him.
Signing someone on a long-term deal and then trading them or them demanding
That's
a
the
trade
new free
is
agency.
the new free
That's the new
agency.
free agency,
So I
yeah.
think to me,
Yeah.
if you have this asset, you can't let another guy walk out the door.
Well, again, price permitted, all right? If they do sign him to the extension, let's not forget what's been one of the holdups in these trade discussions you're hearing out there, unwillingness to sign an extension. So now he's going to have one, and then you can do something with that.
All right, let's transition. That was a long Raptors conversation, but there's
of
a
juice.
lot to talk
A
about.
lot of juice, man.
So let's move to MVP because
It's hot.
it seems
hot.
it seems like it's a 4-person race right now.
Oh, God.
The numbers are all really short. I'm gonna let you guys just leave me some space at the end here. of
Literally
the
and
4.
figuratively.
Yeah. I'm a big guy. I need my space. Of those 4 guys, the 4-person race. Let's start with Fab. Which way you leaning?
So okay, now is the question, who do I think's going to win it?
No.
Or who deserves to be
Where are your dollars going?
Well, my dollars have been on Jokic the whole time.
Of course.
Yeah,
of
well,
course.
and listen, he's the favorite. And my thing before I bet him before the season was his price isn't going to lengthen.
You said that on this very pod.
And it hasn't. It was plus 430 before the season, and the max it got to was maybe what, plus 300, plus 250.
We called you Warren Buffett. We laughed in your face.
I never said don't sprinkle elsewhere.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? It's looking like a good investment right now, isn't it?
Hey, I'm not saying otherwise.
Steady earnings. Steady earnings. You know?
It's a tight race, but at the end of the day, Jokic, I still believe him to be the best player in the league. He's a center who's averaging close to a triple-double on outrageous efficiency. Denver's 3rd in the West. They got smoked by the Jazz last game, but they're still very good record. He's very efficient. He's the clubhouse leader in a lot of analytical stuff. As Zach says, the Vorps and Schnorps of the world.
Dude, he's the sun, man. Everyone orbits around
And
him.
you know what? You want moments? That buzzer beater against the Warriors. Is that not one of the best shots you've ever seen in your life?
Not even that.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, no.
A center hitting a
Warren
half-court
Buffett
buzzer
would
beater?
never.
The idea-
Hold on.
Never.
A center dribbling into a half-court buzzer beater against the Warriors?
in your life.
The pure joy on his face after two for me was what was so
that
good
was
about that. I
actually-
love
He was
that.
happier when he hit that shot than after he won the
winning
first one. I just swore.
With that said, listen, Embiid's having a monster season. You got to tip your hat to what he's doing. He's been a force of nature. And Shai is there, man.
Okay, so the Shea stuff's interesting. Am I gonna step on you for the Embiid because you have takes?
go.
right? Well,
Go.
so the game's played, right? So
Yeah.
this is something that we discussed before the season started. 65 game minimum for anyone to win awards except for Rookie of the Year. Embiid is awfully close now, closer than I would like as someone who has money on Embiid to be confident in that bet. He's now fourth on MVP.
Yeah, he's dropped. He was leading.
Was
he
he plus
was
450, plus 400?
he was leading a week
top,
ago.
and now he's dropping. It is a risk to bet on
be
Embiid for
factored.
MVP, in my
Has to be
opinion,
factored.
right now. We're in, mid-January. He has to miss, 8-9 more games? And
Which is
he's
that's one rolled ankle away.
one rolled ankle away, 2 weeks out, whether it's and he has a history of being injured, injury history, and I think the Sixers, who think they might have a shot here, they've been playing really well with Nick Nurse. They might opt to rest him down the stretch.
Err on the side of caution.
And you no longer can't play a guy 2 minutes in a game and then pull him out.
Well, especially when he burned out last year in the playoffs after gunning for that MVP.
Okay, but we're still asking him to play not that many games going forward. Like, he can still take off 7-8 games and hit the criteria.
Unless he gets hurt.
You're right
let's
at the fringe.
assume Embiid hits the criteria for games. Say he's 65.
I think he's gone down in value due to him being missing so many games.
That is actually the only reason.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the point I was going to make is that if we're about the way you asked the question was absolutely right, but who's the MVP up to this point? It is Embiid. It is Embiid up to this point. Now, if you're going to project how it's going to play out up until April, different conversation. A lot of validity to what Jokic is doing this year or has done, the track record. The guy that I'm saving it up is to talk about SGA.
Yep.
Projecting out. This guy was a guy who was almost 20 to 1 to win this award. He's now the second choice. He's plus 300 to win it. Every checkbox you would ask of him to hit to be part of the MVP conversation, he has hit it with an A+. They've beaten Denver twice. They beat Minnesota. They're half a game out of first place. They beat Boston.
He's got the narrative for sure right now. The narrative is moving in his direction.
Every single one of his stat categories has improved versus last year. He's got the same amount of scoring, and that's with Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
Sharing the court now. You can't take anything away from him. My thing for SJ, no matter what though, and I think even come April he achieves all the check boxes. Will a casual say, "Oh, I know who that is"? There's some people who still won't know who SGA
But
is.
I will say
and
this,
that's tough.
but I'll push back
That's
on that.
tough.
There is always a newness factor that people like. People always want a different person. So that works in his favor. People will be like, you know what? I'm tired of Jokic. I'm tired of Embiid. Shai's having this season well deserved. He's definitely in the mix. Like he's top 3 right now. As you said, huge wins. He's a crazy efficient scorer right now. They have a great record. So people might look at it and say, you know what? This guy, he has the story for it.
Northern Star Award winner. Shout out Carol Wagner.
I will say this though.
Let's go.
Wes said one key thing. Who's the MVP right now versus who the MVP is in April. And I'm gonna bring up the notes here. January 9th, 2023. Your MVP, Joel Embiid. You want to know what he was?
Yeah, it was like
Plus
1,500.
1,500.
Yeah.
January 12th, 2022. Nikola Jokic, your MVP. You know what he was? Plus 1,400. January 12th, 2021. Nikola Jokic, your MVP. Want to know what he was? Plus 1,250.
You're gonna tell us.
It is a long season. Long season. What the narrative is right now is not necessarily what the narrative is going to be in a few months from now. So what I'm doing, I look at those top 4. I'm going Brewster's Millions, none of the above, and I'm looking at the guys below that. And you know what I did this morning? I bet on Jason Tatum one more time to win the MVP because I just think you need to jump on those big values as we saw from the past. The narrative changes. Tatum's last 2 games, what's he put up? Like 43 and 35? If Boston goes and wins like 20 straight or 15 straight, which they're capable of, with Tatum increasing that scoring, can't you see that flipping? You can get him at 33 to 1 right now.
No,
33 to 1.
I agree with your thought process. Tatum's not winning MVP. There's no one who is saying this guy's the best player in the league.
Not right now.
His numbers are
not
down.
right now.
Listen, Boston, he's the head of the snake of a great team, and that's what it is.
How many
There's
times-
no world where Tatum's even top 5 in the
No,
league.
no,
right
hold
now.
on, let me
I'm
debate-
sorry,
no,
he's not.
Right now, yes, but I will debate this. What if they end up being a 65 win
Yes.
team when not a single?
He's still not the MVP.
No, they will.
He's still not.
They
He's
will.
not
They will.
leapfrogging Shai, Jokic, Embiid, and Luka.
How many times does the 1 seed, a 65 win team, their best player win MVP? It happens a lot. My point generally isn't. I kind of
I agree with you,
I
what
said
you're
Tatum
saying.
for the bit just because we've argued about this.
Love a good
but I think the value is in not betting any of those people who have odds as short as 4 to 1 when so much can change, especially the injury factor. And maybe instead of taking $100 and putting it on Shai, take $25 and put it on 4 guys around that 18 to 30 to 1 range instead.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. That's my point.
And listen, we're just talking about who's going to win it. Putting your money down right now on any of these short odds doesn't make a ton
Probably
of
not
sense.
the best choice.
tough.
You know,
It's a tough
Spotlight
time,
West, he spotlighted Shai at what, 9 to 1, 10 to 1 a few weeks ago in an article.
Glad
So
you did.
that would have been the time to kind of jump on a guy like that.
But as I just told you with those numbers, what the narrative is right now is completely different when we get to April.
And that's fair, but also like a little intellectually dishonest because
so?
it's been Jokic and Embiid 1 and 2 for the last like 3 years.
No, it hasn't because I just told you.
Okay,
Like,
but
Hold on,
they
where
are
did he
most
get these
obvious.
numbers from?
No, but it's
Where the
Database.
Sports betting dime. Credit Sports Betting Dime. They have an MVP tracker.
These,
And I will say
these
this.
came from the book of Hein, man.
only-
He could be making these odds up.
personal
I
record
remember Jokic being plus
The
1,400 last year.
The only intellectual dishonest thing is 4 years ago at this time, Giannis was minus 170 and he went on to win the MVP. But that's why we're just talking about the last 3 years. So yes, when you're dealing with me, there's always a little bit of intellectual
That's
dishonesty.
why you have to poke holes, man. You know,
A lot of it.
Yeah. On that note, just a great conversation about the Raps and MVP, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Remember to be honest.